Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final trail session. So, this evening we've got Gary House from Run Strong. Gary is coach, ultra runner, and he's tonight going to be talking about strength training. So, it's definitely his forte and does a lot of things with his coaching group around strength. He's got a lot of YouTube videos on it as well. So, thought he'd be a really good guest this evening, just to finish it off with this final module that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to record it. It's going to be on YouTube. Welcome questions. It's going to be quite a chatty one this evening. So put any questions that you'd like to ask Gary in the Q&A box that's at the bottom of your screen. And we'll just go from there and we'll see how it goes. So thanks so much for joining this evening. And so welcome, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Evening, everyone.
Excellent. Okay, so what we thought we'd do, actually what we might do first, Gary, give us a little bit of your background and introduction, and then we'll do some of the poll questions after that to get started on the talk.
I guess I'm predominantly the running coach now rather than a runner, especially with no races. But the coach at the Run Strong Club. We've got about 200 runners there from around the world now, and that's grown from being a local club coach, and then it grew into online coaching. Way before that, I was PTing in the gym, so doing strength training for people, and in kind of team sport, that kind of stuff. So my background was influenced by strength before I got into running, and then that was the main thing that I neglected when I became a runner. That's the kind of story that I always tell. So I had the strength background, but then once I started running, I ignored it completely. And someone told me once that you will one of the original strength coaches was at some point in your life as a runner, you will need to do strength training, and that's whether it's by necessity or because you want to, or because you've neglected it. And that rang true as soon as you kind of hit 30.
So do you enjoy it, like strength training?
Yeah, so I've grown to enjoy it, but it wasn't something that I would be drawn to. I'm a runner. I'm someone who would much rather be out running. So I get it when people don't want to be, well, it used to be in the gym or doing their own kind of exercises. But when you have some big injuries and you make some big rehabs, and it's only through strength work that you fix it, as in rehab it, each kind of one of those, you either get it straight away or you think, right, maybe I should do something about this. And then it's just, for me, it was finding ways that I could keep consistent with it, and I enjoyed it enough to keep doing it. So I would never say, I've got a little setup in the garage. Like, nobody wants to go out into the garage when it's -5 and start lumping some weight around. But you have to remember, I'd much rather be doing that now and still running in the summer than having all these niggles, aches and pains in the summer when I want to run.
So you've just got a bit of basic kit in the gym. Would you in the garage? Sorry. Would you normally go to a gym, when they're open, or do you just like having bits and bobs at home?
It's been a bit of a mixture. So like I came from a gym background, so my coaching was in the gym and I was personal training in the gym, so I had open access to everything. Like, if I'm honest, that almost gives you too much choice. So I'm messing around with on the leg extension, and I'm not really following a plan because I've got all these machines that I can delve into and things like this. And then you've obviously got the CrossFit guy PT, and then you've got rugby PT, and I'm doing bits of everything. Yeah. As soon as it became just a couple of bits of essential kit, it was a complete change. So you just work with what you've got, and it's more specific. And then I've gone through periods when you might not be able to afford some kit and stuff like that, and you're not doing it at home. But I I've just worked it into the point where, well, I moved away. I moved further enough away from a gym that it just didn't make it worthwhile. Like, I'm 30 minutes drive to the nearest gym at least now. So that's what made me get the kit in the garage. But yeah, beforehand it would be in the gym, and I'd just have to go 3 times a week. But yeah, it was that was at the point where I'm not really enjoying it, because I would have to go to the gym, you have to mess around with your kit and all that kind of thing, and it's never a quick kind of exercise, no matter what anyone says, me included. It's not a 20-minute job in and out. Yeah, you might mess around on a spin bike or go for a swim and sit in a sauna, and all of a sudden half a day's gone.
Sounds like me. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. So if we get a bit of a feel for what everybody's doing with their strength training and what they want a bit of help on, then that will get us started off. So we've got some poll questions this evening for people to answer. So I'm just going to launch these and you can answer them on your screen. So first one, is that Rose?
No, it's Vimto. Yeah.
Okay, so first question, if you could answer, please. So how many times a week do you usually do like the classic strength training where you're doing weights and things, gym type stuff? And you can say never. And do this actual, no fibs.
Me, or is this you lot?
Sorry.
Is this me to answer this, or you lot?
Oh no, sorry. This is the poll that I'm asking everybody. I'll just do the results in a second. You should see it. Just have another couple of seconds and we'll see what people say. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Right, share results. So 27%. Can you see the results there, Gary?
Yeah.
27% never, and vast majority really once or twice a week. And oh look, somebody's put 7 times a week. Oh, no. How many times do you do it a week, Gary?
So it will vary, yeah. Like what I'll say is like if you want to talk, there's like evidence-based view and then there's almost like real life-based view. So if I give you them both, like and first of all, it's determining 2 things. So if you're talking about strength training, then there has to be resistance there. So there has to be a weight, yeah. So yes, you could call strength training doing body weight stuff and things like this, but really, if you talk about strength training, you're talking about lifting something, pushing something, pulling something, yeah. It could just be a kettlebell, but we'll talk of that as strength training.
Okay.
If you do once per week, you will probably keep what you've already got in terms of strength. If you do it twice, and you're talking 30-40 minutes worth, yeah. If you do it twice per week, you're going to make some improvement. 3 times per week, you're going to make a very good improvement. Once you start in 4 times a week, then you're turning into like a gym bunny rather than a runner. Yeah, nothing wrong with it, but yeah, if you're doing 4 run sessions and 4 gym sessions, it's like how much do you want to run? So yeah, from that point of view, you would be starting someone off at twice per week, getting them to do 30-40 minutes, and it's because then there's not many people that can tell me that they can't be consistent with that, yeah, whether they've got the equipment or not. If they haven't got the equipment, it's like, right, buy a kettlebell, buy a couple of dumbbells, yeah. If you really can't buy that, then I get people using 2-litre bottles of water from Tesco. Yeah, it's 50p each, so it's £1 for 4 kilograms of weight, which, although it doesn't sound like a lot, but for some of the movements can be essential. So yeah, you're talking 1, 2, 3 or 4 times per week. Real life is, yeah, you would look at it over 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, because it's the same thing. Someone might do it 3 times 1 week, once the next week, twice the week after that, then 4, and you would kind of average it out over 10 weeks, 3 months. Yeah, because we've probably all been there where you think, right, I'm into this strength training now. I do 3 times this week, 3 times next week, then you have a week off completely. Yeah. So yeah, 2 times per week for me is consistent. You can keep it consistent, and I know that you should make some kind of progress, especially if you're new to it. As you become a bit stronger and your body is adapted to that, then yeah, you probably need 3 sessions per week. And you're talking 30 minutes, as long as you have the same simple routine, lockdown, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so we'll just do next question. So question number 2. Are you currently nursing an injury that could have been prevented by better strength training?
I keep going to answer it myself.
Well, you can. I mean, I am. Well, I don't know really if I am or not, but I've got a bit of a bad knee, but I'm not sure. I think mine was just not recovering properly, actually, rather than the strength training the other side. But what would you say?
While they're kind of answering that, what I will say is that no matter what you will kind of hear or get sold, or even if I say it sometimes, there's never anything, there's no one that will escape running injury free. You can't be injury free, you can't be bulletproof, you can't be any of these things. You will always get injured at some point, whether it's a niggle, whether it's a proper injury. And I would always say I use this same kind of analogy. It's like, if people know anything about poker, you could have the perfect poker hand, right? But you could still lose that hand, even though you've played it perfectly. So you could do all your strength, you could do it religiously, but you could still get a stress-related injury, you could still get a strength-related injury. Go on, I'm rabbiting on there.
You're all right. These are the results. So 61% have said no, so that's great. And then, yeah, there's a few people that have 25%, and then a few people that are not sure.
Yeah. So the 17% that's not sure, that's quite important. So that's usually like, well, I might have had this niggle, but then how long should you have a niggle for? What is, and then it comes down to people's perception of pain or what they want to train through and things like this. So when you ask them a question like that, all of a sudden they have to think, well, hang on a minute, my shin has been a little bit sore for 8 weeks now, but I've just been training through it. Yeah. And then there's the other thing is they might have an injury, but unless they know anything about strength training, how would you know if it's going to be prevented by strength training? It could be prevented by something else.
Okay, great. So we'll just do the final one then. And I'm not sure if I got this right, if I put the right things in here, so you can tell me if I haven't, but I just put, what type of activities do you add into your actual running to build strength? And this is multiple choice, so you can put in lots of answers here. And I don't know if I put the right things. So I'll put things like strides, drills, hill reps, speed intervals, and then just other things. Is there anything that I've missed on there that you do in your actual running?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the main one for strength, so if you use that as other cool stuff, would be hill sprints.
Hill sprints, okay.
The difference between a hill sprint and a hill rep, maybe, after you've got because people might just think that's hill sprint as well. Okay. But I can explain that a bit more. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we'll just share these results here. And so, yeah, most people are doing the reps. So yeah, I should have split that down really. It'd be interesting later to hear what you say about those two. And then we've got the normal speedy type intervals, then a few strides. We did a fell running session with Dave Taylor a few weeks ago, and he was very big on strides. And Dave actually gave everybody strides as their homework to do. So maybe after this, you could give everybody a little bit of homework as well to go away with. And then we've got some other bits and bobs. So yeah. Right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, that's good. So
sorry, Gary, you broke up then. Just go again, because you just broke up a little bit. Oh no. Okay, hang on folks, sorry about this. We'll just give him a minute to see if he comes back. This is best laid plans and all that, isn't it? Just give him a minute. Oh, there we go. Yes, you're there again now.
I'm back. There you go. Welsh internet. Go on.
Okay, well that's it from the poll questions then. So I don't know where you want to start with, like the basics.
Yeah. So I guess you would want to, like, why would you want to strength train in the first place? And it's not that I'm going to say that if you strength train, you will never get injured. Like I was saying, it's more the fact that, well, even if you were just looking at it from a performance perspective, you would want to be stronger. And then outside of running, just in life in general, you would want to be more resilient. You would want to be stronger. We all want to lift, pull, push, that kind of thing, well into our 50s, 60s, 70s, just for overall bone health, if you wanted to go down that kind of line. So there's not many reasons why you shouldn't be doing it. The main reason why people will come up against strength training is, I don't enjoy it and I don't have time to do it, things like this. So it's kind of my job and other people's job to kind of make it enjoyable, kind of make it kind of able to be consistent in their lives, build into a habit so that then they can just keep running, really. and just a bit of understanding how to get started, because it can be, if gyms are open, it could be scary as a runner, especially they might never been into a gym. Most of the people that are runners aren't massive gym goers as well. There's reasons why we're all runners, and we don't want to be stuck in the gym. So if you can just get some bits of home equipment, whether it be a couple of dumbbells, a barbell, doesn't have to be that complicated at the start. Then it goes into understanding what movement should I be doing.
Okay, well, a couple of people have asked about that, like what essential kit to keep going to start. Louise and Ellie have asked that. So say that again. So what about weight with dumbbells? Because would you go in the middle, or would you go heavier or lighter?
So you break it down into, when you're talking strength, you will, so whether you start with body weight or not. So say you were doing a body weight home routine, which included some split squats, some hip kind of movement and things like this. It doesn't really matter what they are, even some calf raises. Most people would start out doing body weight stuff. When you can get to like 4 times 12 reps, that means that your body is probably adapted enough and you've got the technique down enough to start lowering the amount of reps, right? So ultimately you want to be able to do a movement, whether it be a split squat or deadlift, just for 6 reps. Now the problem with that is, as you get stronger, you would need more weight, more resistance to hit that 6 reps. So anything between 6 or 8 reps, 3 sets maybe, as long as you feel some fatigue in that. You don't want to be flat out after it. You want to feel some fatigue in the muscle that you're working, that kind of thing. That's where you should be working towards. So then that's when it becomes completely individualized. For some people, if you do a calf raise and I gave you a tin of beans, you could only do 6 or 8 calf raises, whereas someone else might be able to do 30 plus. So, but if you bought, say, a kettlebell that was 9 kilograms, like I would only ever do my calf raises with a 9 kilogram weight. That kind of thing. I wouldn't ever need to go above that. The bigger movements, yes, you will probably need more weight a lot quicker.
So is a barbell more versatile than dumbbells or something, or what do you think would be better?
So dumbbells would be more versatile because you can do more movements with them. A barbell, if I wasn't coaching them, or if you were on your own, you might not be confident with it. You might not be doing back squats and things like this. Whereas if, again, use a kettlebell as an example, you can just do a goblet squat, or you can just hold it, that kind of thing. And then when it's dumbbells, it's the same deal. You can hold them down by your side and you can be more confident with them, that kind of thing. If you are doing 5 or 6 movements and it's body weight, quite quickly you will be able to add resistance. So you could start off with 2 times 2 litre bottles of water, like I said. There's nothing stopping you doing a couple of lunges with them and see where you're at. You can do, like I said, the split squats or the hip thrusts, that kind of stuff. You can just spend £1 on a couple of bottles of water, and you've got some resistance there. If you can do 30 reps of something, you're no longer doing a strength session. So you need to think, okay, I either need to change the movement, or I need to challenge it in a different way, or I need to go up the weight, so then it reduces the amount of reps. So for instance, use the deadlift as an example, picking the weight off the floor, that kind of thing. Quite quickly, people will be working up towards 1 times their body weight. So if you're a 70 kilo person, you need 70 kilos on the bar or with the bar. That's not as simple as just having some bottles of water all of a sudden. But it's just understanding that you don't have to go in at that. You can change the movement of a deadlift. You can do single leg stuff. Most runners should be doing single leg stuff anyway, which then means the weight isn't anywhere near as much as the bigger movements.
And your range of strength, because you've got some really good help videos, haven't you, on different moves where you show them and stuff, is that just for people on your coaching course, or do you have anything outside in YouTube, or is it that you get the plans from you?
So I talk about the theory of strength, I think, on YouTube and things like this, and kind of a bit like we're doing now. It's quite hard to individualize someone's strength training, so I don't really put it out there. I don't even do that for the group. I just teach them how to do it. but there is, like, as a bare minimum, I do the runner's strength test, and I think it's 5 or 6 exercises, no equipment needed, and it gives the what's called the norm. So how many reps should you be able to hit of this specific calf raise and this hip movement, things like this. If you score quite highly on it, then you should be able to go straight into your strength training. If you score quite lowly on it, it gives you a score, then you would just stick with your body weight movements for now.
That's your MOT, isn't it? Was that the Run Strong MOT?
Yeah, it was we changed it just to the runner's strength test because I was getting people in Ireland and New Zealand saying, what's an MOT? I didn't
Oh.
really.
Okay, great. All right, we'll put a link to it after this then, shall we? Because it's good. I've done that before and it is really good.
And it's 5 or 6 movements. I show the video of how to do it. So yeah, and it gives you a bit of an understanding of, right, okay, so I've got, my calves aren't up to scratch, but I'm got really good glute strength. So why am I doing all these glute exercises and then neglecting my calf? Yeah, and just that kind of information can then give you, right, I can go away and build a 30-minute session for my 3 times a week. And it might just be lower leg stuff because I scored low on the lower leg stuff. Or I might not be able to, my hip movements aren't very good. So I'm just going to do hip movements for 6 to 8 weeks. It's more about exploration for yourself rather than me saying, right, do this, this, and this. And quite a lot of the time, people are strong in areas that you wouldn't necessarily think you are. If you did an actual strength test with what like they call like a dynamometer, and it will give you a score for each muscle group, and then you might think it's a weakness, or people will say I've got tight this and that, but it might be a weakness and the other way around. This test would kind of tell you where you're at with it.
Okay, that sounds great. And Helena has asked, what about resistance bands rather than weights? Are they good?
So, like the way you would look at resistance bands, it's not a replacement for the strength because you're not actually adding that resistance. But what you can do is you can isolate muscles very well, and you could, even if, for example, and I'll keep going to a kettlebell, but if you did a kettlebell but you added the resistance band, all of a sudden you only need the use of a kettlebell and a resistance band rather than buying 3 or 4 kettlebells. So it's just knowing what to do with the resistance band. I'm always a bit scared of saying, yes, it's good for strength training because the bottom line is you do need some resistance. It's not, and it's good, like if someone's traveling or if they just can't get the equipment or they don't want the equipment, then yes, I would say get a resistance band or like a suspension trainer, like a TRX, but cheaper version. They can be quite good as well because then you're leveraging your own body weight. With the resistance band, you've got to remember you're isolating muscles. It's not overall strength kind of thing. Like if you see people do crab walks for their glutes and things like this, yes, you're adding some stabilization into it, but you're not actually building strength in that area. You're never going to get that strength that you actually need. Because you've got to think, the faster that you get as a runner, the more times body weight is going through the ground. Yeah. So if you're running quite fast, you're talking 2-3 times your body weight of force going through. People aren't going to get that strength by just some resistance bands.
Okay, so you've got to prioritize the actual weights, and then the bands are kind of complementary.
Say Helena came to me and was like, I've got no room in my house for a barbell and I can't afford this, blah, 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 but I can get some resistance bands. You would go, great, get the resistance bands and we'll use that. Yeah. But if you can go to that next step, we would prefer that.
Okay, great. And had a couple of questions from Helen and Louise, and this is quite a good one actually. They're both asked, where would you put your strength training within your weekly session? Like, do you do them on easy days or do you leave, your recovery days completely free? And also if you're doing things like yoga or cross training, how would you fit it all in?
Yeah, that's like one of the most common questions because, okay, I want to do this, but when do I do it? Yeah. And anyone who talks about this, I should back this up with, because I've looked and I've asked people way above my pay grade. It doesn't really matter what people say. There isn't enough research to give you a definitive answer on this. The only definitive answer that you can really get is when you can stay consistent with it. That will ultimately be a best. Yeah. But when you're talking best practices and and more kind of when you speak to other coaches and you have good discussions, it's my own conclusion that I've come to, that I would rather have your strength training not on a rest day, especially like, was it Helen that you said has got yoga going on and other sessions, cross training and things like this. Running will probably be the one that puts your body under most strain. Yeah, like I said about the force going through it. So when you need a rest day from that running, because not everyone does need a rest day, but if you know that you need a rest day from that running, should you be doing a strength training session? Probably not, because it's no longer a recovery day. Yeah, I would much rather people doubled up, so they did a run session, not a long one, and not a very intense one, but one, like say less than an hour, not too intense, and then in the evening or the afternoon they did their strength session. Will they lift as much? They'll probably have 10% off their strength, but we're not trying to be the strongest we can ever be. We're just trying to be strong enough to do our running. Yeah, well, that's what I'm teaching people to do. So what I would get across is, ideal world for me, and based on experience and speaking and stuff like this, it would be on the same day as like a moderate run, not too long. You're obviously not going to do it on the day that you've done a 3-hour long run, yeah, necessarily. But what that does is, say for instance, it was on a Wednesday, I did my run in the morning, strength in the evening, and I've planned Thursday as a rest day. Thursday can be my rest day, so I would do my yoga or my cross training, whatever it is that you enjoy doing on your rest or recovery day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Lehman has asked, he's been doing a bit of strength and conditioning classes, and he actually feels worse off from doing it, especially with his lower back and things. And he asks, have you heard of the sling method? That sounds interesting. I don't know what it is. Do you know what it is?
I think it's for like when you have either sciatica and lower back kind of thing. It's almost like used to be called something else. I can't remember, but
okay.
But yeah, you're going down the lines of almost like like a physio question. Then, if it's a physio-led run-specific S&C, that shouldn't be making you feel worse, like in a worse position. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'd need to know what movements he was doing and things like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Lower back and upper back, and you're using a weight, then it's either too high repetition or too much weight kind of thing. Yeah, whoever's leading that class should be able to help you with it, hopefully. Sometimes it's not always the case, I don't know, especially if people are teaching over Zoom at the moment. It's very difficult. For example, if I do a paw squat movement, can you pick that up in this environment? Probably not. Yeah, so you might need to just regress the movements a little bit. You might need to address the lower back pain, because you can get away with quite bad technique in strength. That's the bottom line. You've all watched kind of World's Strongest Man and everything. You wouldn't necessarily say some of that is the best technique when you're talking about that kind of thing. So to get pain from it it's a bit of a red flag to say stop what you're doing.
I tried to do one of those Turkish get-ups a month ago or so. I couldn't walk for about a week afterwards. I didn't do them again.
Something like that, it's quite a complicated movement. If you do it just without a weight, it's complicated enough, yeah. And the reason it is a good movement to take someone through, but it's very skill-based kind of thing. You have to learn the skill and go through it and things like that. And when you get to it, then yeah, obviously you are going to have aches and pains from it. But also, it's like how specific to running do you want to be? Do I need to be able to do a Turkish get-up to be a runner? No.
This is true.
It depends what you want to be. Yeah.
Okay. Denise has asked a good question. So she said, would you continue with strength training in a taper period before a race or an event?
Yeah, good question. And I wrote this kind of stuff down beforehand, so it is a good question in case nobody asked a question. But yeah, so for example, when you said about how often should I do it and this kind of thing, when you're talking 3 times a week, you would be doing your pure, like, if in an ideal world again, when people talk about base training in their running, it's usually further away from their event, yeah? So their winter base training, put it like that. You could do 3 or 4 strength sessions each week then. Yeah, not everyone's going to be doing 3 and 4, but you can definitely do that, and you can go a little bit heavier than usual, and you can really focus on strength, even to the point where you're running, you don't have the same pop kind of thing, and you're running and you might feel a bit fatigued from it. When you start getting a bit more race specific, then I would definitely be telling people to drop the frequency down. So then you go into like 2, maybe 3 a week. As soon as you get to taper, which is kind of sorry, was it Louise?
Denise.
Then you would only probably be doing drills in your taper. So I wouldn't even be touching the weight kind of thing, because it would be that one time where you pick up a weight wrong, where you pull your back or something like that. So there might not be anything wrong with it. And again, it's quite individual. If it's Mr. or Mrs. CrossFit that just loves CrossFit and loves throwing weight around, then I would keep them doing it. I would just say, look, can you just like not do it as with the heaviest weight in the world kind of thing, yeah? But yeah, I wouldn't be doing it up in my taper. I would be doing drills then. So you move from strength training to more plyometric stuff, which is movement, and then from movement into just drills. Yeah.
Okay. And when you say taper, are you thinking like 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks?
Again, kind of depends on the person. So a taper should depend on the person, not an event. So someone taking a 10K seriously should have the same taper as someone taking 100 miles seriously, yeah, because you want to be fully rested. So as long as everyone's on the same page with that, then for most people, usually for most people I've been coaching, I just know, I would say like, look, 2 weeks out, just don't lift a weight. Yeah, if I know that there's someone that's lifting weight a couple of times a week. If there's some guys in the group especially that just like enjoy going to the gym and stuff, so yeah, I'm not going to say don't go to the gym or don't go and do the class that you want to do. It's more like a friendly, just take it easy, yeah. and you kind of leave it with them, because most people, it's just common sense, isn't it? Should I be doing this heavy strength training 4 days before I go and do an event? No. If they truly enjoy it, then yeah, it's up to them.
Yeah, well, there's nothing worse than having dead legs, is there, when you've done all that training and then you get to an event and you've ruined it by going a bit overboard with the weights.
And sometimes there will be, if you first threw yourself into strength training, you will have run sessions where it's affected by the DOMs, whether that be by the amount of weight or whether it be just by you putting in your muscles and doing movements that you haven't done for a while or even ever. Yeah, so you expect that. But quite quickly, your strength sessions should never affect a running session. Like if you imagine going to a Kenyan athlete, imagine if, not that I would be invited to like the Kenyan athletes, but imagine on day one, Gary's the new strength coach, and then all these Kenyan athletes come in, and I take them through a strength session, and then they can't walk for 3 days. Yeah, it's sat on the spot, wouldn't you? Yeah, you've got to almost think like, what would a Kenyan strength athlete be doing? Yeah, they'd be doing just enough to make them strong enough for their running. But if it's going to affect their tempo run or their hill session the next day, then it wouldn't be a job. It's probably their first question, because they don't want to be doing strength training either. It's like, coach, will this affect my running? And it would be no, flat no.
Okay, good point. Great question from Emily. So she's asked, would you do general strength for each session or focus on a different muscle group on different days?
Again, if you're talking someone that's completely injury-free and they're just new to training, then it would be more generalized. So again, we haven't got, or there's not many people I speak to that say, I've got an hour and a half to do my strength training, yeah, let's do, and things like this. So it's 45 minutes. So I would get them doing a couple of bigger movements, a squat, a deadlift, hip thrust, things like this that they can rattle through. And then for the last 10 minutes, maybe get them doing some calf raises and things one day, which is lower leg. And then the other day, focus on some core stuff. And then if they are branching into the third one, even do some upper body thing. Then it would be more specific if it's someone that's doing a mountain race, yeah, and they've got a good history of strength training, and it's like, okay, Kate, you've got a mountain race, you've done 6 months of strength training, we've done nothing upper body wise, why don't we hammer the upper body? We're going to be able to use your poles better and all that kind of stuff, yeah, which which for me, again, it's another, like I've got a coach as well, and he's constantly shouting down my ear that I don't do my upper body work. Yeah. And again, it just comes down, if I'm going to do strength training, I'm going to do the stuff that I'm slightly better at and I don't enjoy. Yeah. So yeah, at some point you would go, right, okay, upper body, if I'm going to be using my poles in the mountains, and I better start working on my upper body. Yeah? Just using the poles maybe isn't enough. I might need to start working my upper body.
Actually, that reminds me, we did a pole session before, and would you maybe after this give us like 3 key exercises for use for pole exercises, please? That would be great. Okay, Jeff has asked about Pilates. Do you rate that? Do you do it yourself?
So yes, I do, first of all. Yeah. When in the first lockdown last year, so around about a year ago, in my own group, like my physio in Manchester got shut down and things like this, and the lady there was running used to run Pilates of it, so she started running she ran Pilates for us in our group, and the sessions were great. And it was the first, like I've done Pilates here and there, and I know some exercises from it, but my reasoning for never doing it really, it was because I couldn't stay consistent with it. And it's a bit like yoga. I don't dismiss yoga at all, but I haven't got time to. It's not on top of my priority list, so I'm not going to do one yoga session every 2 weeks because I know I just won't get the benefit from it. So yes, it's good, but again, it's like, can you commit to two sessions a week, or maybe 3 sessions a week? And I'm not a Pilates instructor, so maybe they might tell me differently, but can I stay consistent with it? Well, yeah, I'm going to have a go with it. And I did it for, I think, 10 weeks, every week with the group. I went through it as well. And I loved some of it. Some of it was really challenging. Some of the muscles that kind of were awakened in me was great. Yeah. Did I keep it up? No, I didn't, if I'm honest. And I dip in, and I've taken some exercises out of it and I give it to people. But then there's 10 hours worth for me to say, right, go and do that. Yeah. Because again, if I had a specific problem that I know might be helped, then I would go and do it again. Yeah, I do rate Pilates, and I rate yoga kind of equally. I just don't know as much about yoga, if I'm honest. And again, it's just the only reason. It's just a priority list kind of thing. If someone was saying I need to get stronger, but they're doing 4 yoga sessions and 1 gym session, yeah, then I would be having a conversation. We need to flip that round. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Stephen's asked, and this will probably be for a lot of people, he struggles to find the time because he's fitting things around work and all these sorts of things. So for things like people who are short on time, but also maybe short on space, have you got any tips that you found work well for people?
Yeah, you have to kind of get creative, yeah. And it's not, so a lot of the time people will talk about reps and sets and what's the best and when's the best time to do it and things like this. If you're just someone that cannot commit to all that, then sometimes it's a bit like, well, I'll chuck it all out the window and I won't try anything, yeah. But then there's been people in the past where I've said, right, can you leave a weight or something by the kettle, and every time you boil a bloody kettle, can you do some calf raises, yeah? Can you do your calf raises when you brush your teeth? Can you do calf raises when you're in the shower? Yes, you can. Yeah, so that is time that you can utilize. And I know it might sound kind of almost borderline crazy to be doing it in the shower, but it's not, because that's if you genuinely have no time, then that's the time you've got to be utilizing. Yeah, can you take the stairs at work instead of getting in the lift? Yeah, and can you take those stairs and skip every couple of steps so you're lunging up the stairs? Yeah, can you, if we're talking back in the old days when people went to offices, can you be the weirdo doing some squats in the corner? Can you lunge to the kettle at lunchtime? Yeah? Maybe not. Yeah. But then I have had people say to me, there was like an air stewardess that would used to lunge down the middle of the plane in a shift. Like she's never going to meet people again. So I'm not saying you have to go that far, but you just have to get a little bit more creative, whether it's paying someone for an hour of their time or something to come out with that creativity, or you just look for it, or you just think, right, where have I got dead space? Is it on a Zoom call? Yeah, so I can just turn my video off and stand up and do some movements. Like you do have to get a bit more creative, but you have got space to do it. It's not, people get stuck in the fact, well, if I can't do my 4 times 10 reps I'm not going to do it at all. If I can't commit to 40 minutes, I'm not going to do it at all. Yeah, and my only thing is, like, I'm not saying that, is it Stephen that has got no time or whatever. My always, like, first stop is like check your screen time. Yeah,
True.
check your screen time on the phone. If that is 0, then we can have a conversation. You know,
This is very true. Something's better than nothing, I guess, isn't it?
it is, yeah, and you kind of get out what you put in with the strength training. So if it's genuinely a time thing, then it's genuinely a time thing. You just have to get creative, like I said.
Yeah, I think for me it's the changing, especially in winter when it's cold. I don't want to be changing into lots of different outfits, one for a run, one for doing strength. So if I don't do it when I've just got back for a run or before, I've got my leggings on doing it, then that's, for me, it takes out 15 minutes of faffing around getting changed and things. So
just tagging it on, and then if you flip what you're saying on the side as well, have, like, there's something to be said to have something that makes you feel good to do your strength training as well, because you might be more likely to do it. Some people, like for me, I've do it in my pajamas now when I'm in the garage. I know do it, that kind of thing. Yeah, but for some people, they might be used to going to the gym and things. It's like, well, get your best gym kit on and go and do it, because that will give you the confidence to go and do it. It just depends where you're at with it sometimes.
Okay, brilliant. Right, coming back to the hills now, if this is a good time to start with this. So Richard has just asked to go back to the different types of hill sessions, if that's okay. That's a biggie, isn't it, really?
Well, if you talk about when it's, so if you look at someone like, really quickly, if anyone was interested further, they could just go down the line and look at someone like Arthur Lydiard, which lots of people listening will have probably heard of. Yeah, he really brought into this, like, bringing hill reps and training into marathon training specifically a lot more. Yeah, but within that you would get, it's just important that people understand the differences, and whether you describe it differently elsewhere, it's fine. But for me, if you're talking strength training, then a hill sprint, and your hill sprint has to be 10 to 15 seconds, that is a flat out strength session, right? And for the reason for that is like, if you're doing a deadlift, like a heavy deadlift, that's a neuromuscular exercise, yeah. So it's like, how much weight can I lift off the floor? And it's the same with a hill sprint. You will go flat out for 10 to 15 seconds, depending on the gradient, and then you recover for 2 minutes. So that's walk, check your phone, do whatever you want to do, but it's resting for 2 minutes. And it's because it's a neuromuscular thing. You need to give your CNS, your nervous system, to rest and fire again, because it's about things firing when it's strength training. Yeah. So you just have to be strict on it's what you'd call like the definition of terms. Like, right, that's a strength, that is pure strength. And that means I can add that in any time into my week, because if I do 4 to 6 hill sprints, I can do them anytime, because they will feel horrible at the time maybe, but I will recover from them very quickly. You don't get the muscle fatigue from a hill sprint. Okay, so that is out and out strength. Then as soon as you go into 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, you're working different energy systems in the body. Without going too much into the weeds of that, it's just slightly different thing. Will you get strength benefits? Yes, but it's more of a crossover now. Will you get strength benefits if you run a 2-hour run on the hills? Yes, but again, it's a different kind of strength. Yeah. Yeah, someone who's a traditional trail runner and fell runner, do they need to be doing endless calf raises? Probably not, if I'm honest, because they have to put their heels aren't touching the floor when they're going up a hill. They're below the knees, putting under a lot of strain anyway. So they're getting that overall strength. If you're a marathon runner that only runs in one plane of motion on the road, and you've got a history of Achilles injuries, then yeah, you bloody need to.
Okay, and which sessions would you add those hill sprints onto?
So you would usually just add them onto an easy session, because when I'm saying you recover from them quick, you're still as in you could run again the next day or the evening necessarily, but you would do an easy run and then finish it with 4 to 6 kind of hill sprints. Doesn't have to be complicated. The gradient should be mixed, but you should never be able to run 20 seconds in a hill sprint. There's a reason why Usain Bolt is the 100 and 200 meter champion, but possibly couldn't do it in 400 meters. Yeah, there's sprinters, and then there's everyone else. Sprinter is a strength exercise. Yeah, so the guy doing the shot put will probably be a better sprinter than the guys doing a 10K, because it's a strength exercise. It's a different event, different ball game.
So say with the people listening, like majority are going to be sort of mid, and ultra distance is really popular with people that have been coming on these sessions. So sort of the longer distance as opposed to like the 10K type of running. So what would you say is the most important strength work for people who are ultra running or aspiring to do that? And maybe not the really difficult stuff like you doing the dragon's back and things, but more for us normal people, what would be the most important things?
Yeah, just like the underlying thing would be, don't be overwhelmed with it and don't be scared by it. It's not that we're trying to ask you to get massive muscles from it or anything like this. Yeah, it's just about can we make you strong enough to be able to perform the running that you want to do. Yeah, so once you take out the fear of all that, it can be a little bit easier. And then if you think, even if you take like the bare minimum of everything that I've just kind of covered. So can I fit in 2 strength sessions of 30 minutes per week? And can those strength sessions be built from a squat movement, maybe a deadlift, a lunge, and some calf raises? Yeah. And if people don't know what they are, then again, get that free thing and it'll kind of show you. But just 5 movements in 30, 40 minutes twice per week. Can I do that? Yes, okay, I think I can do that. Can I add in some hill sprints onto one of my sessions per week? Yeah, if I'm not used to hill sprints. And can I add in my strides to one of them that you've already been doing? Yeah. All of a sudden now you're talking, I've got the strength in my body to be able to be resilient enough to do my running. Now I can go and run. So can I do my hill sprints and my strides? Because then you're talking about form, posture, leg turnover, hip strength, glute strength. You're applying the strength that you've got in those 2 or 3 sessions into your running. And from there, if you wanted to go to the next the next level with it, you would be doing plyometric drills, which people are getting more used to doing. They're not scared of doing A skips, B skips, A march, all the things that make people look a bit daft. Yeah. Grapevines and things like this. You can add them as a warm up, or you can do them as a proper session. And all these things, all of a sudden you think, well, I just want to go and run. Yeah. But there will, like I said, go back to the beginning, and there will be a time where it's either because you've neglected it or because you want to get better that you will have to be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're having 2 months out, 3 months out, 6 months out.
And it's not much, is it? 4 times, 10 seconds, just once a week.
No. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, I've got to do these hills and it's like 6 times 2 minutes. It's like, well, that's a different session. Like strength, when you're talking about strength in your below the leg, especially, but hill sprints are there for your hip strength, for your leg turnover, and probably a lot of the benefits that you heard with strides. It's kind of similar, but I'll caveat it with, if you've got, should be saying this beforehand, but if you've got any kind of calf niggle, Achilles issue, plantar fasciitis, maybe, don't just go blasting into hill sprints. Yeah, you would either get some advice, ease into them, work on technique first, and then kind of go for it. But I'm talking, if you haven't got that issue, 4 to 6 of those and some strides per week. Like most people, like I'm doing myself a disservice here, but most people don't need a plan. They just need to add some of those in to begin with.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned before Lydiard. It's Arthur Lydiard, isn't it? So the guru of hill running, isn't he, in form? So we'll do a link to some of his stuff as well, because it's great with posture and form with running, isn't it?
It's not to hand, not that good. But I think it's Healthy Intelligent Running. Okay. That's a brilliant book that kind of takes a lot of, it's not by Lydiard, didn't write it, but it's someone who studied him, has took his principles and explains it with diagrams and quite as basic as you can talk about running principles, and he'll talk about what I'm talking about, where you should do some longer hill reps, how you could get the benefit from that, what is a hill sprint, all these things. So it's almost like a further reading if you're left here with more questions and answers.
Okay.
And that's quite a good book. I bought that 10 years ago, even though I knew some of the systems, and it's just a good way of explaining it to the runner rather than the old way of me saying this is for a runner rather than a coach.
And Healthy Intelligent Training, do you know who put it together?
No.
On Amazon, don't worry, I'll find it.
I think it's Healthy Intelligent Running, and if you type in, put Lydiard's name with it, it will come up.
Okay, great. Now, sorry.
Go on.
Right, Robert has asked, and actually this is something that I'd find interesting because Robert, with work, he walks a lot. I mean, he walks about 15 to 20 miles a day. Probably maybe a postman. My friend's a postman and he used to run, but now we find it really difficult. And I'm similar because I've got the dog. So when you're dog walking twice a day and you're running, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? So how could you kind of, get the most from the times when you're running and your strength, not to overdo it with the walking on top of as well?
Yeah. Well, so first off, you've got to think, right, I'm at an advantage here, yeah? If you've got a physical or an active job, you're at an advantage, unless it's to the extreme. So if you're a nurse doing 20-hour shift, then you're not. But if you just have to walk a lot compared to other people, then you're in a much better position. You should be more resilient to injury, yeah? So some of the best people I've coached and some of the best ultra runners I've come up against, their recovery is great because they're a brickie, yeah, or that kind of thing, because they are strength training. You're strength training all day. Just walking is a type of strength training, yeah. So as soon as you start to look at it like that, it's okay. Well, I don't need a generic plan like Robert's put. I don't need a plan made for the masses because I'm not necessarily the masses, yeah. I'm already a little bit more resilient to injury, so I can just do my shorter sessions with more speed work, more specific stuff like my hill sprints and strides that aren't going to necessarily basically knacker myself out for work the next day. And my longer runs don't need to be as long, yeah, they can be more specific, and you would work more like basically more like an 80s 90s marathon runner rather than the traditional ultra runner that's doing doubles, back-to-back long runs and things like this, yeah? Remember, that old saying that's hopefully, it's not on its way out, but it's like, oh, it's just time on my feet, it's just time on my feet. Well, if you're working on your feet all day, you don't need more time on your feet necessarily. You just need to be a bit more, you need more kind of specificity. So for someone like Robert, I would say, don't worry about it. You're at an advantage, actually. You just need to be a bit more kind of, whether it's you go down your route yourself by reading a few books like I've mentioned, or just get a little bit of help and just so you can laser down your training a little bit more, if that helps a little bit. And you think back when we had good runners or the best runners like Seb Coe and the marathon runners coming through and things like this, a lot of those guys, they were working full-time manual jobs and they were running 100, 120, 140 miles per week, 3 speed sessions, doing strength work, doing their drills, yeah? So yeah, and there's people now that are saying, well, yeah, I've got this, that, and the other, but it's just because they knew how to train, basically, and there wasn't the confusion of, okay, so if I type into YouTube strength training for runners, all of a sudden you've got this noise from everywhere, yeah? And I'm not saying it's all bad, a lot of it's good, but there is noise confusing everyone.
Okay, so when he's said that he's had training plans before that haven't worked, they just probably haven't taken it into consideration with his life around his running, maybe.
So it would be a case of, sometimes generic plans aren't the worst thing in the world if you think you can commit to it, but it's a bit like a diet plan, yeah? If I gave someone a diet plan and then day 2 you think, well, I'm not going to eat that, or I'm not going to be able to make that.
Yeah.
The whole diet plan is out the window, yeah? So, but again, you don't have to ditch it all either. You can take that generic plan, and because there will be good principles in it, usually, it's like just maybe take some sessions or maybe take some of the stuff out of there, drop some of it out. And again, it's just being a bit more kind of resourceful with it, I guess.
Okay. Very good. Now we'll probably wrap it up at 9 o'clock tonight, because so get your questions in now. If there's any last ones, we've got one off Steve, and he's asked about upper body strength.
Yeah, any of the, but yeah, so yes, there is. I know I've just said I don't do it, but I do try because it's, I know it's a bit of a weakness of mine, yeah, kind of thing. And yes, there is. If you look at, and again, you use an example of a top marathon runner, yeah, and look and just watch their upper body, and then you watch like a 10-hour marathon runner that's just dragging around like with little dinosaur arms because they've been told not to waste energy. It's like, well, you can hardly walk, never mind waste energy. So if anyone's ever been in a position where their legs are failing, you start to leverage your arms more, for one. Yeah, so it's a good idea that you get some strength there. If you use poles, or you expect to use poles, like most of the group here, I'm sure they've been sold on poles. The first time you use poles, what happens? Your heart rate skyrockets and you go, sod this, and you want to chuck them in the bush. Yeah, because your upper body isn't adapted. It's nothing to do with your fitness level or your legs. It's just you're not adapted to it, and you will adapt. And it's just the same as for overall strength. Your upper body is very, without going again down the road of biomechanics and everything, your upper body is very important. It's not the most important. I'm not going to say you have to be at 90 degrees and do this and that, but it is important. So what would I be doing? If you can't do some push-ups, then I would just start there. Yeah. For me, I'm awful at push-ups, so I would just try and do some push-ups and pull-ups. Yeah. And you won't be able to do one pull-up probably. Yeah. You'll only, as in hang and pull. So then that's when you would get a resistance band or something to assist you, like an assisted pull-up, that kind of thing. And again, Steve, I think Steve's in my bloody group, so he can just ask me later. But
now Robert's asked, I'm not sure if I want to ask you this because I know what you're going to say. He's asked about Instagram influencers. I know you're a big fan of influencers, but what do you think about, I mean, I get so many of those popping up in my news feed, you know, with saying join this and do this and that and stuff. So what do you think about those kind of courses?
No, I don't want to, again, I don't want to throw them all out the window. There is some good stuff out there, YouTube and some Instagram influence cause more damage than good by giving wrong information.
Yeah, how do you know who's good and who's not?
With strength training, it's a lot easier than running. You could because at least because with running, anyone can kind of give you advice to an extent. Yeah, like I can't give someone advice on plumbing or car mechanics. Yeah, because then they would go, well, give us your whatever card or whatever. Yeah, prove that you know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, there's not like certain running qualifications won't qualify to talk to you about running. Never mind strength training. Whereas but on the other side of that, you've got a lot of strength people that are qualified in strength and conditioning from team sports that are giving out complete rubbish about running specific stuff. So it's a good question. What I would say is I would just listen to people, to be honest. And if you think that it makes sense, almost go with it. You've got to trust yourself a little bit. But yeah, there are some people, because I don't want to just say that it's all rubbish, and I'm sure people will disagree with some of the stuff I say, which is fine too. But then mine only comes from reading books and things like this, and some of it has got, sometimes people have just got to take it on themselves a little bit to go, well, yeah, I'm a bit confused. Maybe I'll get a book or something like this, or pay for someone's time for an hour just to talk me through the basics, or sit on a course, or sit on more calls like this. Yeah, you might sit on someone else's that's good, and you might sit on someone else's that's crap, and things like this. I know it's not a definitive answer, but the problem is you could get someone with 50 followers on Instagram giving out really good information. You could give someone with 100,000 giving out rubbish information, and vice versa. Yeah, that it's that kind of thing. As a general rule, if they're an influencer and I mean, there are red flags. There's a lot of influencers and running coaches giving out strength training when they're injured all the time, or and things like this. So just common sense, I guess. They'll never really do damage because you would just go down the wrong path. You will have your ladder up against the wrong window, for want of a better word, for a while. And then you'll think, wait a minute, this isn't working. Why am I doing why am I doing 10 hops on a pogo stick upside down? Yeah, this isn't working. Yeah.
Jan has asked about over 50s strength training. So if you're in 50s, 60s, 70s and wanting to do a little bit more on strength, is there anything different that you should be doing?
Nothing different in the principles, yeah. The benefits are much better, especially if you haven't, because you're never too late to start strength training, because you just, because then you're talking things about bone health and things like this, yeah. So resistance training, 100%. If you're in your 50s and you haven't, and you've got any inkling to do it, just start now. Yeah, it's never too late. I've had in the gym, you'd have 70-year-olds that can't get out of a chair, and if you can give them the freedom to get out of a chair, that's way better than running or whatever. Yeah. So yes, start there, but just start with body weight and do the simple movements. Can I do seated squats? And it's literally getting up and out of a chair in a squat movement, box squats, use like I mentioned, the suspension trainer, which might sound a bit scary at first, but again, just some basic movements in the suspension training there is to help you leverage yourself. It's to take the fear of falling away in your head and things like this. Quite quickly, you will be able to use a weight and things like this. And again, it's not a scary weight. If you can do a calf raise without a weight, you can do a calf raise with a weight. It just depends on the amount of weight. And then if you really want to, I would also say, like, there's some very good over 50s, like personal trainers especially, that could help with over 50s strength and condition, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Is there anything that you feel like we've not covered this evening, which you'd say just needs, any tips or anything that we haven't spoken about, or do you think we've done most of it?
Not really, because it is. I get why there's so many questions, and it's quite a broad subject. Which
All good ones.
the questions were pretty good. They're runners' questions, and it's and kind of thing. Most people are kind of halfway there. I think some of it is just someone, hopefully like me, to say it's okay if you can only do 15 minutes two times a week. Yeah, just start doing that. If you haven't started, just start. If you've got that niggle, if you've got that injury, like that, these things aren't happening by mistake. If you keep getting an Achilles issue that keeps coming back every 6 months after you've rested it for 6 months, well, of course it's going to keep coming back. Yeah. As a general rule, people get injured through training load. Yeah, so you're loading yourself too much, but you can offset that through strength training and things like this. And just don't let it scare you. Find someone that you trust, whether someone Kate's pointed you to or whatever, and just ask questions and start to build a bit more of a picture for yourself, because your body will be different to the next person's. Yeah, so when I had this knee injury, I did this. That can't be taken as gospel, because, well, it just can't be. Yeah. And a lot of the time, just even if you book in with a physio for a couple of sessions, like physios, if you want to think about, oh, well, PTing is a minefield and run coaching is a minefield, and I don't know where to start, I don't know who to trust, at least physiotherapy is kind of, it is regulated quite good. You could go to a physio and ask just for some strength sessions. They would absolutely love it if someone came to them without an injury and they were able to just give them a bit of a plan to help them not get injured. That's probably the best bit of advice I can give someone. If you're not injured, you don't even have to trust me or Kate or anyone. Go to a proper physio and ask for a bit of advice.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And so for the people we had the vast majority of people were either doing 0 or say 1 strength session a week. So you mentioned the hill sprints. What would be your homework or your tip for people on the lower end of the strength training for them to go away and do tomorrow?
In their running, well, for at home, because I'm big on calf injuries, right? Because especially this time of year, and especially this year, because the mixture of it's the January rush of running, motivation is high, and lockdown meant that people were running a lot more and things like this. And then February kind of hits, and everyone's got a calf injury, yeah. And it's usually down to the training load. So if you're not, so do 2 different times of calf raises, and it's every other day for as long as you can keep that link. So I used to say like a week or 2 weeks, but every other day for as long as you can keep that going. And it's a straight leg calf raise, which is just the typical calf raise you can think of, but use this tempo. So it's straight up and then 4, 3, 2, 1. That's my heel dropping. But again, if you get that little free guide, it'll show you how to do a calf raise. Then do the same calf raise, but with your knee bent. What that is doing is hitting what you'd call more the soleus, which is the muscle that is attached kind of on top of the Achilles, controls there. Typically a weak point in a runner takes a lot of force in a runner. So if you do a straight leg calf raise and a bent knee calf raise or bent leg, whatever you want to call it, every other day, that would be my homework, yeah. Because I don't need to convince people to go do a hill sprint when they're outside. You should be doing them anyway.
Well, but they're probably not. I'm not.
No, people won't do, but it's easier to get you to do that because it's outside and it's part of your run. Even if you thought I'll do it halfway through my run, whereas calf raises, it's like, oh, does anyone want to do calf raises? But if you think about it, no one wants to brush their teeth, do they? But if you do it because it's a habit and hopefully you don't want to smell. Yeah. So it's a habit that you could build in. Within a month, you could have built that habit in. I'm just going to do my 20 calf raises, fine, done, yeah?
Okay, fantastic. But a good starting point is to start with your, I know it's not called the MOT, but we'll put a link up to it.
Yeah, that's
weaknesses are.
Especially if you've not done any kind of strength movements or anything before, there's no equipment needed, and you can just score yourself and
yeah. Brilliant. And if people want to join the Run Strong group and get coaching with you as well, then they can, can't they?
Yeah, as long as you're not a crazy person, just type in Run Strong Club.
We'll send them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've got the kids and the coaching and the running and everything going on. So
no, I like talking about it. Don't worry, it's good fun.
Great. And so if anybody's got any more questions after this evening, contact Gary. And yeah, if you need a coaching plan or anything like that, then he'll be happy to oblige. I just wanted to say thanks so much for joining these sessions because it's the last one tonight and they've just been brilliant. Really enjoyed them all. Everybody's brought so much to each session and I've learned a lot and I know that everybody's really enjoyed them. And this was a great one to finish on. So thank you so much, Gary. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah.
And we'll put the recording
link for you so you can.
Yeah.
There you go. That'll take you to the little free test on the comments.
Okay, brilliant. All right then. So thanks so much, everybody. I'll catch up with you soon and have a nice evening.
Thanks, Kate.
Good night.
Night. Done.